Hey there, before we get into the video, we're running a contest on Instagram where you can win a pre-built commander deck based on one of the previous videos on the channel. All you need to do is like the page, like the contest picture, tag 3 of your friends, and comment your favorite color combination. We're running this contest until September 13th, so don't hesitate and get your entry in before then. Now, on with the video. Hello everybody and welcome back to a brand new episode of Wartalk. My name is Stefan. I'm coming to you from the General Warfare headquarters. I am a content creator here on YouTube, and you can follow me in my socials in the bottom left hand side of your screen right now. So today's topic is a relatively new topic. I had a discussion with my play group last night about it, and it brought up a couple of interesting ideas, and so I wanted to share that with you, and I wanted to share my thoughts on the situation itself. As you can tell with the title of this video, we're going to be discussing an interesting topic. Can older commanders compete with today's commanders? So let's not hesitate on this. Let's get right into it. So a lot of our discussion was based on conversations from like past years and how the format was back then. So a lot of it, there was a lot of reliance back in the day on commander damage because it was more prevalent back in the day. So you'd have decks that were much more combat centric, like Rafik of the Many, I still believe was one of the biggest influencers at the time. Crush the Bloodbraided was also a very damage-oriented one. I remember Tin building his very first deck being a Gisela Blade of Gold Knight deck. And I know, what was his name? Morgan made a Zergo Helm Smasher deck back in the day. All those commanders are very damage-focused decks, and as you tell, the meta has shifted since then. Since commander damage and damage altogether is not I don't want to say damage altogether in the sense that damage overall is not prevalent. However, maybe you guys would agree with me, it's not as important as how combo is nowadays, how stacks is, how control is. Control has always been a gigantic factor in Magic ever since the beginning of when its inception was, but nonetheless, I think nowadays more so, control and stacks have been more dominant in today's meta. Even back then too, combo decks were not as easily obtainable. Like, back then, I only remember like a handful of decks that were very combo oriented. Like there was still the Niv Mizzet Curiosity combos. I still think Mischaeus and Triskelion was still a mainstay combo. I find nowadays with the more printing of commander products and the more printing of commander oriented cards, I feel that's going out the window in favor of more combo centric builds, and especially so since nowadays, or now I should say in today's meta, you're more focused on getting a Villainous Wolf win in, or Thrasis Oracle. A lot of wheel decks are very prevalent and very prominent in the metas today, even so much so that Wizards had a discussion on whether it should be banned or whether they should put a nerf on it. Thankfully, they nerfed one of the biggest problems from Commander's Legends, Hull Breacher. So thankful about that. But even still, like, that doesn't change the fact that a lot of today's decks is still very focused and hyper-focused on combo. The meta always shifts. It shifts over time. It makes better, more appealing commanders. Like my examples from before. Crush the Bloodbraided was my very first commander. Gisela Blade of Gold Knight was Tin's first commander. Zergo's Helm Smasher was Morgan's first commander. And even still, I can run down the list of all our very first commanders. However, we'd be here all day. Back in the day, we'd have decks like that, and then we'd build around like the commander products, because at that time, if not Innistrad, then it was around the time Return to Ravnica was coming out, and even then, like, there was a lot of options to build commander decks around, and commander was not a prominent format as it is today. I would very much think that commander is now one of, if not the most popular format in Magic today. From the majority of what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing from releases, it's mostly centric towards commander. And as you can tell, like the last year, we've had so many commander products on release. Almost every single set now has to have a commander precon attached to it. This last year alone, let's look at it like this. Kaldheim had 2 commanders that come out. We had Ragnar and we had Lathril both come out as commander precons. Then we had Time Spiral Remastered that was released, and that opened up a flurry of more affordable Commander products from Time Spiral and old bordered and different border cards altogether. Then followed up with Strixhaven, and that opened up giving us 5 Commander products, 5 Commander decks ultimately. And then Adventures in the Forgotten Realm has just came out maybe about a month ago at the recording of this video, and that even came out with, I believe, 4 Commander products. And even still, it wouldn't be a surprise to me if the new Innistrad sets, both Midnight Hunt and Crimson Vow, when they come out, because they're supposed to be closing out the year this year with 2 sets, if they come out both with Commander products. And you can tell from last week's video, I did a very quick deck brew from Lenore, Autumn Sovereign. That was very quick, as you can tell. It was a first draft of a deck that we don't have much information. That deck tech, I should say, is very much limited to what we know going into Innistrad Midnight Hunt. Lenore is still a spoiled Commander precon, and it wouldn't surprise me if we have one more from Midnight Hunt, and then we have another 2 for Crimson Vow. I'm happy we're getting a lot more Commander products. That's just my personal opinion. However, that being said, how will they compare to today's format? Let's give you a little bit of an insight. So we could compare decks like Niv Mizzet, the Firemind from way back when, a very combo-oriented deck, Mael the Anima, Zedru the the Great-Hearted. We can also compare very combat-centric decks like Rafiq and like Crush the Blood Rated. Those were decks that were very prominent from like a decade ago, and you could tell the power levels from those are very, very different from what we're getting today with Golos, with Kenrith, with the First Sliver. We also have some of the newest commanders from this year too. We have Oscar that came out, Prosper came out, Galea. We also have Tiamat. We also have some of the new stuff from Adventures in the Forgotten Realms, which I think, as you can tell, I've been a big fan of. The power level from those decks, and you can even include stuff like Bergi and some of the gods from Kaldheim. And then we have commanders that have, I find, stood the test of time. I think the most prominent out of all the commanders I've personally played against that has stood the test of time is still Nekazar the Mindrazor. To be quite honest with you, because Nekazar is probably a deck I've played years and years back, and it's still just as scary it is before as it is today, especially with all the wheel effects and having a 3-mana combination that allows it to have access to so many different combinations, so many different cards as well to add to the deck. And I find a lot of older commanders too, they especially the ones I've just named have just become secondary legendary creatures in commander decks due to the printing of commander centric specific commanders. Like we can go over all the different kind of commanders, but off the top of my head we have Prosper, Tomebound, that's probably one of the newest toys that come out for commander. Yuriko, Tire Shadow, still, even from the printing from a couple of years ago, still one of the most scary decks to come out in most recent years. Korvold, Faker's King is also a really good sack engine. It's probably completely eclipsed what Koresh used to do nowadays, especially. What else we have? We have the Blathril, Blade of the Elves that came out earlier this year, which is probably one of the more popular elf commanders to come out. We also have Chatterfang, which came out in Modern Horizons 2, and Chatterfang has probably swept the entire commander format from when it was first printed, especially driving up the price of a card called Pitiless Plunder, since it itself becomes an infinite combo with the two, creating, I think, infinite squirrels and infinite tokens. Ultimately, you can see the interactions between all of these different cards because they're commander-specific commanders. They're built for commander. Commander players know what they're building as well when they see these cards. As you can tell, you can mostly likely find older commander cards in the precons when they come in built, since they're not as prominent anymore, since, like I mentioned to you before, the power levels and the meta shifts every single year. So what we see today and today's popular commanders won't be as prevalent and won't be as powerful as in the commanders from the next 2 years, let's just say. They'll probably build something even more dumb, even more stupid, and even still, who knows, even Thras's Oracle can even be eclipsed one day. There wasn't a lot of color balance between decks. So whatever commander you had to play was limited to whatever colors you wanted to play was limited to the commander that you wanted to play. However, with the introduction of the partner mechanic, forgive me, I don't remember what year it came out. If partner mechanic ultimately saved the format, in my personal opinion, and not only mine but a couple of others, because they mana fixes you. Even if you don't want to play a specifically oriented deck towards a specific theme or specific subtype, you're not limited to that when it comes to partner. Especially when the first couple partner commanders for the precons came out, and then we had the reintroduction of the partner mechanic back in Commander Legends, which is last year. That opened the floodgates basically to whatever color combination you want to build. It's not, you don't have to specifically build around the commanders nowadays, since partner allows you to build decks with whatever color combination you want to build. So if you want to build a green, black, and red deck, you can put two partner commanders together, and there you go. You have a green, black, and red deck. If you want to build just a white and blue deck, you can put two partner commanders together, and there you go. Even still, it's very much saved the format ultimately, since a lot of the meta, and since a lot of them, like I said, the meta changed, especially so. And with the increase of that, over the years, we've also had a lot of archetypes being made more viable, thanks to the increased support with different colors. Like, you've seen the explosion that red got over the years, and this last year too. You could make the argument for white coming out with cards like Cosmos Intervention. Secret Rendezvous was like the first best source to that. And then you can also add cards like Archaeomancer's Map, or you can also add in Mothering Tithe, you can add in Esper Sentinel that came out just this past year, Keeper of the Accord, which came out in Commander Legends, I believe. Even a Chroma's Will too is another very, very important card that came out in Commander Legends as well. As you can tell with the rise and the resurgence of all these different colors, back in the now Commander has been more viable, especially towards colors that really need the support. And when it comes to a head-to-head competitive game, it might be difficult for a lot of older commanders to fare against newer, more format-specific commanders. However, we're all taking this with a grain of salt, and with the idea that each one of these decks is fully optimized to the best of their ability. And also, like, I'll give you a good example. My most expensive and my fastest deck is my Krenko Mob Boss deck. This is a deck that I've had for years and years, and even still, Krenko is still probably one of the most popular red commanders, because it's a very popular theme deck, and I took it apart maybe once or twice, but I've always added to it too. Like, over the years, I've found it to be one of my faster decks to play with, and I've always added to it. And since back when I was first playing it, I always had the same core to the deck. However, I kept adding to it, and now throughout the years, with the inclusion of amazing red cards like Jessica's Will that just came out in this past year, Dockside Extortionist to Deflecting SWAT, some of these cards I've actually put in the deck because they are so key to red. With the inclusion of Dockside Extortionist, with the inclusion of Jessica's Will, these decks have went from like a 7 to like an 8.5 in terms of power level, especially with my Krenko deck, because the curve of that deck is 5, and I'm running about 32 lands, since it's a 4-mana general, and a lot of it has to be stuffed in with goblins. So now a lot of what we see now has been the result of years and years of development and making colors more prominent, much better, and more accessible, having more access to different cards and different abilities in different colors. And ultimately, General Warfare has been around for, at this point, 3.5 years. And as you can tell, if you've been a long-time fan of the channel, you know I used to do live videos. I want to resume that back in next year, 2022. And that being said, my very first game with the channel was my Krenko deck, and it was pretty optimized at the time. However, it's still, I feel, even as you could say this with every single deck. Every single deck is still under construction in some form. It's never a perfect deck, if you will. Nothing is ever perfect in this world. I've come to realize that, but no deck is actually perfect. There's always optimizations. You can always tinker with it. You can always swap out cards for new cards and test run them. And you'll see now down the line if commanders from the old, no, that's kind of stupid. Yeah, then you'll see basically down the line with a brewing with $50 or with a general warfare. Who knows if it's going to be in person or on Cockatrice, if some old decks can stand up with some of the new decks. And that's going to do it for today's video. I want to know from you guys, what do you guys think of today's video? What are some of your questions? What are some of your topics that you found interesting from this? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you like what you saw, and if you want to continue, you want to support the channel in any way, just hit the like button, share it amongst your friends, subscribe to the channel, and please hit that bell icon, because not only would I appreciate the support and the subscribe, it would help increase the algorithm for this channel and get me more views to grow the channel ultimately. As I mentioned to you earlier in the video, you can find me at my socials down the bottom left hand side of your screen. I have my TikTok, I have my Instagram, my Twitter, and my Facebook. You can find me each at all of those, so follow the links, like them, subscribe to each one of them. And shoot me a message if you want a specific video to go over. And lastly, I post every Friday at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I've been doing this for the past couple of weeks, and I found that it's garnered a lot more attention, so I may continue doing this for the foreseeable future. Lastly, second to last note, we are running a contest on the Instagram deck. Do you want to win a deck that has been brewed on this channel before? If you've seen my Brewing for $50 episodes, you know each one of the decks that I built on the channel, and you can win one of those decks. You just have to follow the link in the Instagram page, like the Instagram page, like the Instagram picture, tag 3 of your friends, and comment your favorite color combination. And next week's video is going to be a special video because next week is actually my birthday. I'm turning 29 years old, and I'm actually going to be doing a retro Brewing with $50 deck. So if you have a guess what deck it'll be, leave it in the comments or follow me on my socials and leave me and just shoot me a message there what you think it's going to be. I'll let you know if you're right. I'll let you know if you're wrong. But next week, expect a retro brew of a deck of my choice. And until then, thank you so much for watching, everybody. Have a great week. Much love, and I'll see you guys next Friday for the retro brew. Until then, cheers, everybody.